up die. Feel the vibe, get ready to ignite. Untold stories in the airways, flying through the night. Experience voices, tales so bold. Streaming live, the truth unfolds. Untold Radio Network, where secrets come alive. New episodes daily, the mysteries thrive. Great guests, super chat, so I remember I share and subscribe. Join the side where truth can't hide. Aliens in the attic, UFOs in the sky. Cryptids lurking, oh my, oh my. Ghosts in the hallway, whispering your name. The paranormal, the unexplained. Become a VIP, get the inside scoop. Unlock the mysteries, be part of the group. Live streaming stories, they're talking to you. Super chats buzzing, join the crew. Untold Radio Network, where secrets come alive. New episodes daily, the mysteries thrive. Great guests, super chat, it's a wild member ride. Share and subscribe, join the side where truth can hide. So if you've got the guts and you want to explore, tune into the Untold, it's what you're looking for. From aliens to ghosts and all that's unseen. Untold Radio Network, where the world's mysteries convene.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Paranormal Spectrum here on the Untold Radio Network. I am your host, Barnaby Jones, from Cryptids, Anomalies, and the Paranormal Society. We are going to jump right in today, guys. We have a lot of stuff coming up here for Caps. If you're into the paranormal, if you're into the spooky, we got some cool stuff for you. Starting this weekend, we have a unique opportunity to do an overnight paranormal investigation with you guys. So we are hosting 2 Friday evening and Saturday evening in Menominee, Michigan. This house is the house of CAPS team members Rick and Barbara Post, who are actually moving out of their haunted house. Their house has been featured on numerous CAPS episodes, including It's Elemental, My Dear, and A Man's Home is His Castle, as well as our Halloween special a few years ago that we investigated. We have had all kinds of strange phenomenon and stuff happen here, including recording an EVP and a lot of REM pod weird activity, a small entity running back and forth down a hallway, triggering a REM pod and ghost balls and stuff as it did. It was really fun. We've had nothing but strange encounters here. Well, Rick and Barbara have sold their house, and it is now pretty much cleared out. They are going to be out at the end of this month. So this is your one and only chance to come and investigate the house alongside the CAPS team. It is going to be this weekend, August 22nd and 23rd. It starts at 6 p.m. And you don't have to spend the whole night if you don't want to, but you can stay until 9 a.m. This was also featured on the television series My Haunted Hometown, where they came out and kind of showcased Rick and Barbara's paranormal house as well. So the only opportunity you got is this weekend. Sorry for the short notice, but they kind of sold the house and decided to move all within a month there. So that's it. That's what you get. But it's going to be a really good time. If you're interested in the paranormal, you're available this weekend. Come out and check it out. And then, guys, September 19th and 20th, we are going to be in, if you want tickets for that, wisconsincaps.com. Click on the public events tab, and the information, actually, the information isn't there. I'm sorry. All the rest of it is. Facebook.com, and then go to Wisconsin Caps or Cryptids, Anomalies, and the Paranormal Society. You can get it through our website too if you click on our ticketing page, but yeah, all the information is on our Facebook. So if you're interested, go to Facebook, and yeah, or I'll throw it in the show notes after the show. Yeah, there you go. All right, SilCon in Gaze, Illinois, September 19th and 20th, big 2-day convention down there, cosplay event, a lot of other paranormal and cryptidy people going to be there, so you're going to want to come out and check that out as well. Then, guys, we head to the Van Meter Visitor Festival, Saturday, September 27th, Veterans Reception Center in Van Meter, Illinois. And coming up all October, every Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, you can investigate the paranormal at another building that was featured on My Haunted Hometown. Bean Snappers Gentlemen's Club is haunted in Mackville, Wisconsin. It is an over 100-year history. With the building, it was passed down and owned from the time that it was built through 4 generations until finally being sold to its current owners. But there has been the gambit of paranormal activity, and we have not had a investigation there that has not had some sort of strange, bizarre encounter. So you guys can find all the tickets there at hauntedbeansnappers.com. You can even book yourself a private investigation for your team if you don't want to do it with a whole bunch of other group of people. But available for any Sunday, Monday, or Tuesday. We have tickets available on our website all October, and some other events as well. There are about 1 weekend a month right now that are available for tickets as well. So then, guys, coming up, I'm going to be at the Shawano County Library October 16th, the Brownsville Public Library on October 22nd, and the Neenah Public Library on October 25th. All of these are going to be the science of the paranormal, exploring the paranormal presentations, giving you some stories on how to use equipment, what it does, and a lot of really cool evidence and stories as well of the paranormal. And then all of these also now include investigations of the library. Now, I don't know about Neenah, but the Shawano Public Library told me last year that they had paranormal activity in the main library area, so we get to investigate that. And the Brownsville Public Library claims they have a ghost in the basement. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Looking forward to all 3 of these events, and hopefully we can have you guys come out. All 3 of these are free, so if you guys are interested in coming out and investigating with us at the libraries and experiencing the paranormal, look for that coming up in October. That information is on our website, wisconsincaps.com/public events. And then coming up, guys, next year, we are going to be in Cape Girardeau, Missouri for CapCon Missouri, April 17th through the 19th. If you'd like to be a vendor at either that or our Wisconsin event, email us at wisconsincaps.com. The Fond du Lac, Wisconsin event is May 8th through the 10th. There you go. All right, that's enough. We're done with that. All right, guys. We do not have a guest today. So unfortunately, you get to listen to me ramble for the next 45 minutes to an hour about aliens and UFOs and disclosure. So one of the things that I do besides hosting this show is I go around to libraries, presentations, conventions, and other things like that, and I speak as well as hosting the podcast and organizing Cryptids, Anomalies, and the Paranormal Society, and all of our research. But I also speak at these libraries. So today, my guest, there's a 2-week thing here where my guest today was a pre-recorded episode, and I had to throw that back to last week because my guest couldn't show up last week, and so we have an opening today. And instead of trying to fight for a guest, I thought I would talk about something that actually is pretty important, pretty relevant here, and that's the state of the UAP disclosure here in the United States. and kind of basically around the world. We're going to talk a little bit about Brazil and Central and South America as well, and some of the stuff that's going on down there, some of the sightings and reports. So we'll get to that in a little while. But we are live, Lee Warner. Hello. So if you guys have any questions or comments for me throughout the show, throw them in the comments section. Lee would like to know if I'm going to finally confess what planet I'm really from. No, you do not get that information. Sorry. Anyway, we are going to talk about all the UFO stuff. So again, if you have any questions or comments, throw them in the comments section, and I will get to them as soon as I can. All right. With that being said, I've tested this, so I hope this works. But here we go. So, I don't like that. There we go. All right. So, what we're going to talk about today is UFO UAP disclosure and kind of what's been going on in the United States government right now as far as all that is concerned. So again, if you have any questions or comments throughout the show, throw them in the comments section and we will get to them as soon as we can. So I want to start out with a little bit of kind of background here and a little bit of terminology. So UFO, UAP, USO, unidentified aerial object, UFO, and UAP is unidentified aerial phenomenon or anomalous phenomenon, as it's been kind of changed to. And then, of course, the USO is unidentified submersible object. So one of the things that happened recently is that they've changed the terminology. A lot of people notice that it's gone from UFO to UAP. And one of the reasons for that is because a lot of people did not take the UFO seriously. And when they brought it towards the government and brought it up to the hearings and stuff like that, they changed it to object or anomalous phenomenon, because as you see, as we go through this stuff, things have kind of evolved from saying these things are more of a nuts and bolts craft to the phenomenon itself. Those of you familiar with Skinwalker Ranch, we're going to talk a lot about that in this episode as well. But it tends to derive from that and saying that this is not necessarily all nuts and bolts objects, but more of the phenomenon itself that could possibly be interdimensional or transmedium and stuff like that. So, all right. And some terms to know. So a whistleblower is, we're going to put this up there. There you go. Whistleblower is a person who informs on a person or organization engaged in illicit activity. And then a lot of the things that these people talk about when we talk about the government disclosure is they cannot talk about it unless it's in a skiff. So when you're talking about the congressional hearings and stuff, a lot of the whistleblowers that come forward say, well, I can tell you all this information, but it has to be in a skiff. So a skiff is a sensitive, compartmentalized information facility, or a skiff. It tends to be a small room that there is no audio recording devices, no cell phones allowed in, and it's actually noise proofed as well, so people can't like listen in or anything. So it's you have to have the clearance in order to hear the information in order to be part of that meeting. And then a SAP or a SAP is a special access program, is a program that protects classified information by implementing stricter security measures than normal. So these are things that people may be privy to throughout their line of work, and that the reason why they have the information that other people in the government do not. So special access programs are basically why certain areas of the government may know about these craft or aliens or what have you, where other places absolutely do not. So I think a lot of us have I usually read these comments while other people are talking. So if I pause, this is what I'm doing, is just kind of catching up on comments here. If you have a question, make it in all caps so I know that it's a question, not just comments. That would be very helpful. But so Skinwalker Ranch, I think a lot of people that listen to the show are probably familiar with Skinwalker Ranch. It is a property in northern Utah that is basically synonymous with UAP activity, strange portals, large cryptid creatures, you name it, it runs the gambit of electromagnetic anomalies and so on and so forth there. It is the center of the television series right now, The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, that is currently in airing right now. Would have been Tuesdays on the History Channel. So I think we kind of know what that is. If everybody doesn't, look it up. But that's what we're going to talk about here for a little bit. Going back to the origin of where all this UAP disclosure and government stuff kind of came from, as far as disclosure goes, it all kind of stems back from Skinwalker Ranch, at least what's going on in the government right now. So Skinwalker Ranch was owned by a private family, and they had all these things start happening there, and they didn't want the ranch, and word got out. And a man by the name of Robert Bigelow actually ended up purchasing it. Now, he is a real estate mogul from Las Vegas. We'll get to some of that stuff in a second there. So he founded the National Institute for Discovery Science in 1995. This was to take a serious look at a lot of the fringe science paranormal topics. He was very interested in all this stuff. So he put together this whole group of people just to study this. And he purchased Skinwalker Ranch and was doing this research starting in 1996. So a man by the name of Cole Kelleher was a biochemist, 15-year research degree in all this stuff. He was one of the people that Robert Bigelow brought in to kind of research and investigate this property. He was part of NIDS, the National Institute for Discovery Science, and he worked right on the property alongside Bigelow for several years. So a lot of the information that we're going to talk about today, if you're interested in more, I highly recommend these 3 books. The Hunt for the Skinwalker, which is by Colm Kelleher and George Knapp. It was written about the stuff that happened on the Skinwalker Ranch property, and kind of tells a little bit about the backstory of the property, as well as the stuff that NIDS, the National Institute for Discovery Science, did while they were there, and kind of a lot of stuff that happened there. And then you have Skinwalkers at the Pentagon by Colm Kelleher, George Knapp, and James Lukatsky, who were also part, again, of the Skinwalker Project. But this takes you a little bit further and talks about how this got involved with the United States government, how that got all brought in. And then we have Lou Elizondo's book, Inside the Pentagon's Hunt for UFOs, Imminent is the name of that book. And they're all very interesting reads. And a lot of what we're going to talk about in the first part of this is talked about in those books in great detail. So really awesome books, really good read if you're interested in any of that. And for those of you who don't know, I actually had the opportunity to go out and do some investigating at Skinwalker Ranch on the neighboring property there. Allows you to do UTV tours and stuff. And that's the UFO Valley Campground is next door. And Lee would like to know, when I was there at Skinwalker Ranch, did I see any UAPs? So the first episode on our YouTube channel this year is a little episode about kind of what happened out there and a little bit of history and stuff when I was out there. So when I was out there, I did not get to spend the whole night. I was out there till about 1 a.m, and I didn't see anything that I could really I didn't get anything on video that I would really consider unusual or paranormal. We did get strange EMF spikes, very similar to if you watch the very first episode of Skinwalker Ranch with Travis Taylor. His tri-field meter goes spiky and weird. Mine did the exact same thing over on their property as well. I also had my drone, which was they asked me to shoot some aerial footage of the campground for promotional use because nobody else could get their drone to work there either. And my drone dropped 400 feet straight out of the sky. Did not drain its battery, did not try and home itself as it should. It just literally dropped right out of the sky. But I did see one anomalous light that evening, but it was kind of just above the horizon, and it moved really quick. And that's about all it was. There's a surprisingly amount of traffic on the road, kind of on the other side of Skinwalker Ranch. And there's like construction equipment or farm equipment or something that beeps, like the backup beep, beep, beep. there was a lot of that throughout the night that wasn't coming from Skinwalker, but nearby. So I'm not sure if it was a farm or a quarry or something that was nearby that was working. But this was at night, like 9 o'clock till midnight that this was going on. So not sure what that was, but yeah, surprising amount of odd stuff like that. But anyway, back to this. Further reading from Hunt for the Skinwalker, Skinwalkers at the Pentagon, and Luis Elizondo's Eminent. Really good books. So the Hunt for the Skinwalker fell into the hands. Oh, sorry, we got a little bit here. So another guy that got to work out there was Jay Stratton. Now, Jay Stratton was the first head of the UAP Taskforce, which was, we'll talk a little bit about later, but it was the first organization that was modern era to kind of look into these UAPs and kind of write a report, and we'll get to that more later. But he was one of the first people to investigate the Tic Tac video and that whole case that came up. He again was part of the original NIDS project, the National Institute for Discovery Science, and got to work on Skinwalker Ranch as well. So Senator Harry Reid was given or got a copy of the Hunt for the Skinwalker book. And while on deployment overseas, he read this book, was very intrigued by some of the weird phenomenon in it, and the implications to basically government security and national security of if these things are in our airspace, why aren't we doing anything about them? Why isn't anyone looking into this? So he actually got to have a meeting with Colm Kelleher, John Glenn, and James Lukatsky in 1996 to kind of look at this stuff and get an idea about it, and passed around this book, and a lot of people were interested in it as well. So they were able to found the Advanced Aerospace Weapons Systems Application Program, or AWSAP. So this was in 2007. He was joined by, this is Harry Reid, was joined by colleagues Ted Stevens, who was a Republican from Alaska, and Daniel Inouye from Hawaii. So they invested $22 million in the Advanced Aerospace Weapons Systems Application Program, or AWSAP. The program investigated military reports of UAPs, or UFOs at the time, and other inexplicable aerial phenomenon. It was closed down in 2012. So there's also ATIP, which is the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. Now, this came out in a report by Leslie Kean, which we'll talk about a little bit later as well. But there's a lot of misidentification between these two because ATIP never really existed, according to them. It was a acronym as part of a report that they put out, but it never actually was an organization. But a lot of the times you see AWSAP and ATIP kind of written interchangeably. If you look up ATIP online, you find the exact same information that I just told you about AWSAP. So it kind of was a misidentification as to the actual acronym or the actual name of the organization. So AWSAP solicits bids to get a research company to come forward and do the research that they want to investigate the claims and stuff. And the person who bid on this actually was the only bidder was Robert Bigelow. So he was already working with Harry Reid at the time. And so they kind of already had the petri dish, if you will, of Skinwalker Ranch available for this project. So in January of 2008, Robert Bigelow establishes the Bigelow Aerospace Advanced Space Studies, or BASS. And so that became his little subgroup that was based on studying the phenomenon on Skinwalker Ranch in association with the United States government. All right. So this kind of takes us forward a little bit here. At the end of President Trump's first term, there is the National Defense Authorization Act, which is basically the spending budget for the military and the government for the next year. And in this act, this would have been 2021, or the bill that goes into effect for 2021 at the end of 2020. There was a small little thing in there about the UAP disclosure, and that they wanted to know where all of this money went that was for all these programs and wanted them to say, well, if the government funded all of this, why isn't this information made public? And so, as a part of the National Defense Authorization Act of 2020 for 2021 that was signed into law, they had to provide all of this. So they mandated the establishment of the UAP Taskforce, which was originally run by Jay Stratton, who we talked about earlier. And so this was, again, a part of the Department of Defense, and they were in charge of trying to look into all of these anomalous claims like the Tic Tac video and stuff, which hadn't really kind of leaked yet at that time, but it was part of what came out of this. So they were supposed to release a document saying all of this stuff and what was found. All right, so then you have the Unidentified Arial Phenomenon Task Force, UAPTF. So in August 4th, 2020, the Deputy Secretary of Defense, David Norquist, approved the document, and this went into law. And so they went to look for all this stuff. The mission of the task force is to detect, analyze, and catalog UAPs that could potentially pose a threat to national security. So again, this is why we've transitioned from UFOs to UAPs, because now when you're saying unidentified aerial phenomenon, you have this massive amount of stigma with UFOs, little green men, aliens, and that kind of stuff. And the only way that they got this to go through Congress was to change it to unidentified aerial phenomenon, because if these things are invading our airspace, if these things are flying around and we cannot catch up to them, if our equipment is not technologically advanced enough that we can fight them, that this is going to be a problem, and we need to look into this at a serious level. So the preliminary analysis came out June 25th of 2021, and the assumption, various forms of sensors that register UAP generally operate correctly and capture enough data to allow initial assessment, but some UAPs may attribute to sensor anomalies. So, and you can read right there is the link to the actual assessment and the preliminary from the UAP task force there. Basically what that means is they're saying that we have a lot of these things, but we don't know what they are. They could be just sensory anomalies and not actually pertain to real things that are up in the sky or stuff like that. So there's a lot of just, yeah, we don't know what it is kind of stuff. But they also say we have no actual proof to say that these UAPs exist and that they are a threat or anything. So basically, we don't know, and there's nothing to look into, is what the UAP task force came back and said. At that point, they kind of transitioned into a new group or organization, which would be the All-Domain Anomalous Resolution Office, or AARO. And this group is still running right now. This is under the Office of the Secretary of Defense that investigates UFOs and UAPs and other phenomenon in air, sea, and or space or land. The first director of this was the physicist Sean Kirkpatrick. Now, this is very important because, again, we're transitioning this topic from saying UFO, unidentified aerial phenomenon, to UAP, unidentified anomalous phenomenon, or unidentified aerial phenomenon. And with this all-domain anomaly research office, it's all domain, air, sea, land, because we're getting more of these stories, and the witnesses coming forward are talking about things that are transversing transmediums. So going into water without leaving a ripple or movement of the water. You are getting going into solid mountains or ground and coming out without, this shouldn't be possible. We don't have any technology that we know of that is capable of this. Again, you watch The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, they talk about this UFO or UAP all the time that goes into the mesa and then comes back out on another part of the mesa. This is exactly what this medium meaning water, air, ground. It's trans going through it. So transmedium, it's able to transverse through these different substances without any kind of resistance from those mediums. And this is really important because this starts to transition things over from, again, the nuts and bolts craft into the more the more interdimensional thought pattern. So Techno Shaman wants to know, what's the reason Skinwalkers is such an active place? Well, that's a very good question. And they have not got to the bottom of it. I think there's a lot of areas around the world that have what were called window areas. And it's these areas that have very high activity of everything from paranormal, UFO, UAP, cryptids, you name it, in them. And I think Skinwalker Ranch is obviously one of them. Now, one of the things that they think maybe is like a meteor crash recently, if it's not a UFO or UAP of some sort, but also like areas right here in Wisconsin. We have a very similar area down by the Burlington Woods. We call it the Burlington Vortex. Now, my team has done a lot of research down there, and we've had everything from fairies to Native American burial site there. We've seen UFOs down there. We have had Bigfoot activity all within this very, very small area of woods. And I mean, who's to say why this is? There's a power line cut that cuts across the Burlington Woods as well. So there could be high energy grid there. There is not large high transmission power lines or anything that cut across Skinwalker Ranch. I mean, so that's not what we're talking about there. But if you watch Beyond Skinwalker Ranch, the other show on History Channel, they discuss a lot of other areas around the United States and beyond that have very high strangeness as well. Techno Shaman asks, could it be ley lines? Well, this is another theory as well, that are these natural occurring lines of high energy around the United States, around the world. And for whatever reason, they seem to have a lot of energy, and they're really interesting. Now, there are ley lines down in Burlington Woods, because I know this for a fact, because we've done a lot of research there. I cannot say about Skinwalker Ranch or any of the other places, but it is definitely a possibility. I don't know. I know ley lines. I believe ley lines have a lot of power and potential and stuff. I can't say for sure that is what's causing these, quote unquote window areas, because I don't know that it would affect all of these phenomenon the same way. So I don't know. Until we have actual answers, we're never really going to know that connection for sure. So awesome. All right. Moving on. So All Domain Anomalous Resolution Office, All Domain, weird stuff. We're getting into less of the nuts and bolts, more of the strange, bizarre stuff. So Sean Kirkpatrick was the original deputy, or the head of Arrow, All Domain. And so he's an American laser and materials physicist. He is the first director of the United States Department of Defense's All Domain Anomalous Resolution Office, or Arrow. He is an adjunct assistant professor of physics at the University of Georgia. So he's a very accredited man. But the problem with Kirkpatrick, from a lot of people that have, worked with him or interviewed him and stuff, is basically this was a job to him. It was something on his resume, and he didn't really care too much about UFOs or UAPs or any of the phenomena itself. He went in there, he did his job, and that was it. He didn't necessarily have the passion that other people did. Now, this could be a good thing or a bad thing, because without that background or interest in actual UAPs and stuff, you're going to be more biased and more interested in what's actually going on than trying to prove your own theories and stuff. But it just seemed like he was not doing too well as the director. So they have since replaced him. So let's see. John T. Kozlowski is, I think, the current runner for the Arrow project now. Now, he is a research doctorate in National Security Agency, or NASA, and he is also an expert in the area of free space optics. So I don't know what that means, but that's what he does for his background. This is about the time that the group called To the Stars Academy comes in place. Now, To the Stars Academy was founded by Blink-182 lead singer Tom DeLonge, for anybody that's familiar with that, along with a couple other people as well. And they basically came on the scene and said, hey, we're going to build a UFO. We'd like some money. We'd like to start funding this and do a lot of research in that. And a lot of that kind of fizzled, and a lot of people were kind of upset with To the Stars Academy, but it is still going. They're still doing research and still doing their stuff. But one of the things they did do was they were responsible for bringing forward the story to Leslie Kean and Ralph Blumenthal. And so on June 5th, 2003, Leslie Kean and Ralph Blumenthal published a story detailing David Grush's claims of a UFO cover-up by the government. So this was a big deal. This brought this story. It was national coverage. National news outlets picked it up because here is David Grush's first time coming forward, brought forward by To the Stars Academy. He was a whistleblower, went to them because they were working with this. They brought him to Leslie Kean and Ralph Blumenthal to publish this story. And he came forward with a lot of big claims, right? And we'll get to that when we get to the hearing. So when this story broke, it made a lot of waves, and it led to the government and certain people in the government taking this very seriously. And this is where we get the Committee on Oversight and Accountability, and the very first congressional hearing that was put out by the government to kind of take a look at these potential claims by the whistleblowers. So the unidentified anomalous phenomenon, implications on national security, public safety, and government transparency hearing took place July 26th, 2023. So this was the first public hearing. You can actually go watch the entire thing on YouTube. All of the hearings that we're going to talk about, you can. Highly recommend it. Go check them out. All right. So the people that came forward were David Fravor. So he is a retired naval pilot and commander of the VFA 41, also known as the Black Aces. He is one of the primary witnesses in the 2004 USS Nimitz case, which is off the coast of California. This the USS Nimitz was out there performing not experiments. What is the word? Lee will get it for me. They're doing a training, whatever, out in the water there, and they film this Tic Tac at the time. And David Fravor talks about how this object moved faster than anything that we have currently in our government. There's nothing that we have that can operate like this thing. And whatever it was outmaneuvered all their aircraft, knew things that it shouldn't, like their rendezvous point and such things like that. So he testified to Congress about how this object moved and everything. Training maneuvers. Thank you, Lee. Thank you. Yes. Training maneuvers. That's what they were doing. All right. So this is the USS Nimitz footage. As you can tell, like a lot of people have seen this, the UFO where these guys are watching it and they're going, oh my gosh, it's moving. There's a whole fleet of them, all that stuff. That's what we're talking about here. The Tic Tac footage that was filmed and was leaked actually by Lou Elizondo's group at the time. We'll talk more later. Another guy that came forward was Ryan Graves. Ryan Graves is Lieutenant U.S. Lieutenant U.S. Navy and FA-18F pilot, founder and executive director of Americans for Safe Aerospace. So he was a pilot that actually claimed that he saw one of these weird craft, and I believe he touched it, had some like interaction with it. So his wasn't that real. And when you're talking about UFOs, everything is, exciting that we're talking about this to begin with, but we're going to get more here. So David Grush, United States Air Force, USAF officer and intelligence officer, testified in front of Congress that there was non-human spacecraft and their pilots were actually in the possession by the United States. Spacecraft of alien origin had been recovered. So off-world vehicles or non-human vehicles were in the possession of the United States government and their cohorts, the other space agencies and so forth. whatever, the places that build spacecrafts, the aerospace companies. So that's what he came forward and basically said, that we had all this stuff, told the government where they could find it, and said that he'd happily provide all this information in a skiff. So behind closed doors, private, need to know information. And this was very interesting because, he worked on a daily basis as the person who briefed the president. So he was privy to, the most important information on a day-to-day basis. So this is where David Grush kind of came from, besides all of his other stuff where he worked every day. All right, so the Schumer-Rounds Amendment then came into existence, and what this is it's part of the the National Defense Authorization Act for the fiscal year of 2024. Again, this is the government's basically allowance for spending for the next year. So as part of that, so sponsored by Senator Chuck Schumer and Mike Rounds, the federal government basically what this was is they wanted to put out in words that they wanted to be able to subpoena people in these aerospace companies that should have these craft. Okay. They want to bring them in and say, hey, do you have these craft? Where'd you get them? What are you doing with them? And so on and so forth. They wanted to be able to exercise eminent domain and be able to take these craft back and put them in the hands of not necessarily the United States people, but put the information in the hands. Because if these things experience zero gravity or being able to move in different ways than our fossil fuels and the propulsion systems that we know now, this is extremely important information that shouldn't be in the hands of very small group of aerospace companies and stuff to profit off of. It should be the knowledge of the entire world. So that was kind of where they were going with this. They also wanted to establish a review board that reported directly to the president. So the president was supposed to handpick a group of people that would basically go over all of the documents, all of the classified information, and review it and release it to the public. The problem with this thing is it has gone through 3 different versions of it now, and it's still up for debate right now in the Senate. This is, 2 years later at this point, because this would have been the end of 2023 when this was introduced for the 2024 year. And they have watered it down. They have tried to cut things out of it. And one of the main things is they didn't want eminent domain in there. So some of the other senators that were in the pockets of these aerospace companies said, well, we don't want eminent domain in there. We don't want you to have the ability to subpoena our people or to take things from these companies. And they said, well, if you have nothing for us to take, then why can't we have that? Now, again, eminent domain is actually already in the United States Constitution, that if they want to go in and take their own property back, they can. So this is only really in there as a specific to this topic, that they wanted it to be like emphasize that they're going to have this ability. But the Schumer-Rounds Amendment never has come to fruition yet. It is still being debated, is still being passed around in newer forms and stuff in the Senate and the government right now. All right. So Chuck Schumer, Senate Majority Leader, Mike Rounds, Senator of South Dakota. All right, so then we come to the next hearing, the Unidentified Arial Phenomenon, Exposing the Truth, Congressional Hearing Number 2, November 13th, 2024. The link right there, you go to the House oversight.house.gov/hearing, Unidentified Anomalous Phenomenon, Exposing the Truth. Go Google it. You can find it. And highly recommend listening to these hearings. This brought forward the UAP Whistleblower Protection Act. And what this did was it allowed protection for these government employees to come forward and say, we have had experiences, we've seen certain things, we've experienced certain things. And now, instead of being court-martialed for telling us, telling people what we saw, or for being ridiculed, because a lot of these pilots didn't want to come forward and say, hey, we saw this stuff, because they're going to get their pilot's license taken away if they start having hallucinations or what have you when they're flying. This is very serious stuff. So what this Whistleblower Act, it basically provided a little bit of protection for these people to come forward. So Mike Gold is the Chief Growth Officer for Red Wire Space. He served for the NASA Space Agency, Associate Administrator for Space Policies and Partnerships, and he wanted basically to ask Congress to work with NASA and invite NASA into this conversation. I don't know why they hadn't been involved anyway, being space organization, but he says that a lot of the congressional hearing and stuff needs to ask and utilize NASA more for their technologies and their resources in investigating the UAPs. That was basically his contribution to the hearing. Lou Elizondo, United States Department of Defense in roles of United States Army counterintelligence. He worked for the Office of Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence, and he resigned from the government to join Two Stars Academy. Basically, he was involved in a lot of the stuff for counterinformation. So things that were going on, not necessarily with UFOs, UAPs at the time, but initially his work was with that. He was with the government and military, ex-military, and would kind of hide things that we were doing or misinformation and stuff. And he got brought in to kind of do this as well with the UAP topic and that stuff. So he was privy to a lot of these things. Again, this was the guy who was involved with the disclosure of the USS Nimitz case file and the TikTok video. So he is the guy that wrote the book Imminent, which we talked about earlier in this program, and highly recommend, go check it out. That stuff. Tim Gallaudet testified at the hearing. He has seen UFO or UAP footage and USOs while active duty for the United States Navy. He called for a destigmatism of the subject across science, the military, and the general public. So kind of, again, just kind of coming forward to say, hey, we need to start talking about this. Take away the stigma. This stuff is real. Let's talk about it. And Michael Schellenberger, American author, journalist, published a story that alleged the United States government was operating a secret UFO program called Immaculate Constellation. So this wasn't a big deal at the time of, talking about it. Basically, he had nothing to do with Immaculate Constellation. He just wrote the article about it. And during the hearing, he did not talk about where he got the source for this from. They did not want to come out at the time. We now know that the informant for that was Matthew Brown. He has come forward on the podcast Weaponized with Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp. So George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell have apparently recorded a lot of interviews with whistleblowers, and just to get their stories recorded and documented. And Matthew Brown said that he wanted to come forward and put a face with the story of Immaculate Constellation, and basically because he was scared for his life, right? That a lot of the people that have come forward with stories have had their personal lives threatened, their bank accounts frozen, all kinds of stuff like that, lost their job, terrible stuff like that. So this is why he came forward and wanted this put out there, so that, if something happened to him, people had a face with the name, and he just didn't disappear off the books. So what Immaculate Constellation was, according to him, is a special access program in SAP that collected imagery and intelligence on UAPs and ARVs and RVs, which are reproduction vehicles. Basically, what that is if the United States government, any government, has built their own flying saucer. So the craft, not necessarily flying saucer, but alien craft, have you. Any of these objects that are flying around that aren't necessarily extraterrestrial or interdimensional, but actually owned by terrestrial organizations like the United States government, the British government, whatever, have these crafts that they have backwards engineered and rebuilt. So ARV would be basically a vehicle that crashed that they rebuilt and are using, and an RV would be one that they built on their own that is similar to one of those. So if we've re-engineered one of their craft and are flying it around, or versus building our own, but either way, they're run by us, not these other beings. Has the men in okay, hang on, we're gonna go over here. Has the Men in Black been involved in these whistleblowers? I'm not talking about the real Men in Black, but the other wannabe agencies. None of their organizations, aside from basically the only thing that I guess I would consider that would be Lou Elizondo. He was part of like not OSAP, but Arrow, and so he'd be kind of like one of the alphabet organizations that kind of has come forward. But otherwise, all of our other whistleblowers so far are more either pilots or have had personal experiences with the stuff or have been privy to information, not necessarily the ones that have worked directly with it, if that makes sense. So back to Immaculate Constellation. So this was basically he worked for Matthew Brown, the guy that found this document on the computer, worked for a organization, well, actually one of your ABC organizations again. And he was going through some files on the computer and came across this document that said Immaculate Constellation. He opened it up because it was basically, if they found stuff on this share drive, they were supposed to report it saying, hey, this doesn't belong in there. It's supposed to be classified. It's supposed to be in this folder. So it was within his bounds to look through this stuff and kind of be like, well, what is this? Oh, that doesn't belong there. And then report it to the proper authorities. So what this project was is he said that it had, no, we're not there yet. It talked about this large black triangle that they saw over the ocean over, I think it was a Russian vehicle, a Russian ship out in the ocean, and talked about going out and investigating this. There was pictures. Lou Elizondo's picture was as part of this, and all this stuff of talking about going out and looking at these different objects or vehicles, if you will. And so he reported it to his authority and said, hey, this doesn't belong in there. And they said, oh, it's nothing, don't worry about it. And so that didn't sit well with him. So he took it up higher and got a meeting with his higher ups, and they looked at it and scrolled through it a couple times and then laughed and said, oh, this is nothing. And then promptly just deleted it off the drive. So take that for what it's worth. But it did have ties to, again, Lou Elizondo and some other things in there that for whatever reason was part of this project. All right. Unidentified Anomalous Phenomenon Records Collection. Again, part of the 2024 National Defense Authorization Act, that spending bill that we talked about a couple times now. It required the NARA to establish the Unidentified Anomalous Phenomenon Records Collection, and each federal agency to review, identify, and organize each UAP record in its custody for disclosure to the public and transmission to the National Archives. The NARA has established Records Group 615, the Unidentified Anomalous Phenomenon Records Collection. What this means is that as part of this Authorization Act, they are getting this whole group of people together to go through every classified piece of information that has to do with UFOs, UAPs, little green men, what have you. And it must be declassified. So with this in mind, certain things can be redacted, because obviously a lot of the reason why a lot of this stuff isn't being redacted is because the way it was collected, where it was collected, and some of the things that may have also been collected with it. So if we're sending spy satellites over Russia right now, and we videotape a UAP, we don't want the Russian government to know that we're filming over them with our spy satellites, right? So, or we don't want to let people know that if we see a cube UFO and the cube UFO belongs to China. We don't want China to know that we've seen their object, right? So hopefully that makes sense to you guys. But that's why some of this stuff isn't declassified and why it can't be declassified, even if it's just a video footage. So, all right. So what this Authorization Act, Records Collection Act does is it says that all this stuff has to be declassified. If it cannot be declassified, it needs to be slightly redacted to hide that information of how it was collected, where it was collected, etc., to protect that part of national security. And if it cannot be redacted and declassified now, we have to put out a document saying why it can't be, saying just simply the location of footage and the subject of the footage is classified and pertains to, clandestine operations of filming over territories or etc., like I just mentioned. Then it will explain when and how it can be classified in the future. So they have to declassify it either way. It just depends on when and how. So this information can be declassified in 10 years. And then that document will be submitted to the National Archives so that anybody can go and view it. So Lee says, I should do more of this more often. Shows everyone how smart that you are and how much you study and know about this stuff. Yeah, I believe it or not. I mean, like, I'm not just a podcast host. Like, this is what I do. I do cryptids, anomalies, and the Paranormal Society, and we research everything. And, these are the presentations that I go into at libraries. So now you're getting a sneak behind the cover. But anyway, thank you, Lee. I appreciate that. All right. So next up here, coming out of this second congressional, where are we? The third congressional hearing. Thank you, Kim. Kim says, very interesting. So next up here is Jake Barber. He's another whistleblower. He he did not come through at the hearings. I'm sorry. So we're moving on from the hearings here. So Jake Barber came forward with investigative journalist Ross Coulthart when he was interviewed on News Nation. Now, this is where we go from the nuts and bolts to really weird stuff. He flew helicopters for secret government missions to retrieve what may have been alien technology. So Jake Barber he was not necessarily military. He was a contracted by the government to go to these locations and pick up things, shipping containers, military vehicles, crashed down aircrafts, things like that. Just everyday things that, the military needed transported and moved, right? So he would go up in his helicopter, fly to a location that he was given, pick up the object, fly it to an air base or wherever it was going. And in the course of this, he encountered some very strange things, one of which was a white egg-shaped object the size of a SUV. So basically a giant egg. He also observed a flying disc with what he said was 8 discernible edges. He referred to an 8-gon. He had he encountered a couple different things while doing this. But on the course of one of his missions to fly out, he was getting closer and closer to his target. And he says that he had a mental reaction to the retrieval object. He said what this object put out is what he described as a feminine energy, very similar to the energy of what he describes like his mother or significant other or whatever would give him. Like he felt this, like this energy coming off this object. It was very intense, and this energy has stayed with him to today. So a very weird kind of metaphysical phenomenon going on with one of these retrieval objects that he had. He is one of the first people to come forward publicly and talk about psionics. So psionics refers to a hypothetical ability to manipulate the environment or affect objects through mental power alone, often involving telekinesis, telepathy, or other mental abilities. Another way to describe this would be the CE5, or the Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, which was talked about by Stephen Greer for years. This human-initiated contact and communication with extraterrestrial beings. It involves using protocols, often involving meditation and signaling, to attempt to initiate contact. We've talked about CE5 on my show. I've had other guests come on and talk about this as well. There's a lot of events all over the United States for these things. But according to Jake Barber, there's a group of people known as the Psionics team that they travel around. They go and they have these shipping containers that go out to locations, and this is their base of operations around the world. And they'll go out there and mentally contact these things and try and attract these different objects, or UAPs, UFOs, to try and bring these things in. There's also, we'll get to that in a second. So that's what psionics are. Jake Barber has founded Skywatcher. The purpose of Skywatcher is to detecting, tracking, and quantifying aerial threats, including aircraft, unmanned aerial vehicles, unconventional aerospace activity, and anomalies with advanced sensor network and real-time intelligence. Basically, what Skywatcher wants to do is what the government is doing, but on a public-facing front. So all the things that these psionics teams are doing, and the CE5, and calling in these objects, using the DAP to try and document these things and getting high-quality video of these objects. So they have a YouTube channel. You can go check it out. Skywatcher is the group. And they've released a couple videos so far. They're supposed to, their claim is that they're going to release high quality evidence of UAPs and unidentified aerial phenomenon by the end of 2025. So they're running close on time here, but what they've done so far is they've released a bunch of videos kind of backstorying what's going on, who they are, what they're trying to do, and kind of giving you that background before they kind of drop these things out. So wait and see what comes from them. So they have what they call the dog whistle. The organization claims it has been able to at least partly replicate the process it believes the government has used, to attract non-human technology to Earth. Skywatcher has a secret location known as the Range, where it uses a signaling system that described as an electromechanical dog whistle. It has worked 100% of the time in summoning this phenomenon. Now, this has been discussed by a lot of other people throughout the UFO community and stuff, that there's certain frequencies that are used by the government, or certain technologies and stuff that we established back in the 1940s during the World War I, World War II. And these interfere with whatever anti-gravity technology or systems these propulsion of these UAP have. And this is what caused the 1947 Roswell crash, because of our own technology. Now, this is again where we get this dog whistle technology from, is because this frequency of sound, vibration, whatever it is what's causing these things to crash or bring them down. And that's what this dog whistle potentially might be. We don't know. Jake Barber and his team have not declassified what the actual technology is that they're using, or otherwise every person out there is going to be using it, and we're going to have UFOs crashing everywhere around the world. But anyway, that's where they're at with that. So they have 9 classifications of the phenomenon according to Skywatcher. We're going to go these pretty quick here. So one is a tetra. If you're not watching this on YouTube, either go look this up yourself, or kind of go over to YouTube and watch these, because you can see pictures of each of them. Tetrahedron-shaped UAP, which trembles on multiple axes while on a stable flight path, often appears in groups of 3 to 20. The Tic Tac is a cylindrical UAP that hovers, elongated during stable flight, and has an area effect on electronics and aircraft. The Blob is a orb-shaped UAP that exhibits pulsing internal light, horizontal oscillation, and erratic point-to-point movement. IR only is an orb-shaped UAP that vibrates while in a stable flight path, only seen, or sometimes seen in pairs, but only seen through infrared IR. The Manta Ray which is a manta ray shaped UAP that tumbles on multiple axes, rarely seen, observed in proximity to Tic Tacs. The bright star, it's a reflective tetrahedron shaped UAP that oscillates horizontally, flashing light. The team has experienced sensor disruptions apparently caused by directed energy. The jellyfish shaped UAP with seeking head motion and trailing tentacles. The hornet or dual body UAP with hanging tendrils and I don't know what that word is. Rotation. And the egg, a white egg-shaped UAP, provisional class designation, no collaborating motion, structure, or spectral data. One of the things that you'll notice is the typical saucer-shaped UFOs are not in any of these classifications of what they consider UAPs. That's really interesting to a lot of people, that here they are kind of talking about all the different shapes of UAPs and stuff that are out there, and that is not one of them. All right. So moving on, we have Anna Paulina Luna. She is an Air Force veteran serving as the U.S. representative for Florida's 13th Congressional District since 2023. She is the chair of the Task Force of Declassification of Federal Secrets. That's cool. So she has been one of the kind of people heading these congressional hearings, a very influential person on these things. But she has recently, well, within the past year, been put in charge of the Task Force for Declassification of Federal Secrets. Most notably, this is, again, with the UAPs, but also when we're talking about the JFK files, the Martin Luther King, and those files as well, some of that stuff. So recently she's been working a lot with the JFK files, and working on getting some stuff from the Kremlin, which is a document that they did their own research into this of, who shot JFK. I don't know. Really interesting stuff. She was just with Joe Rogan on a very interesting podcast talking about the UAP topics as well as the JFK files and stuff. So Joe Rogan show, Anna Paulina Luna, go look that up. Really worth listening to as well. Interesting. So, but what she's done here is she's in charge of this task force now. All right. One of the other very controversial things that's going on, this is down in Central and South America, is the Nazca mummies. These things were brought forward several years ago, kind of written off as a hoax, and they were literally brought into a congressional hearing in Brazil and presented to the Brazilian Congress, saying that these things are legitimate beings, right? So they're not a hoax. They are these. Let me back up. So Nazca, Peru, the Nazca area, we don't know exactly where these things were discovered. They were discovered by basically grave robbers, people, treasure hunters and stuff like that, that are selling off antiquities and other things like that, that brought these forward and said, is this real? How much money can I get for it? And that's where these things have come from. And there's several known ones, and there's supposed to be like hundreds of these mummies. They range anything from like 1.5 feet tall up to 4 feet tall, mummified bipedal beings, humanoid in shape, in structure. But the most interesting thing is they're tridactyl, which means they only have 3 fingers. They have been disputed for several years since they kind of came forward and stuff, but now there's a little bit more traction going behind this. More reputable scientists have taken this in, and they've done scans on these things to try and see if these things are legitimate. And some of the things that they show x-rays show metal implants in the body that have actually grown into the skin. So they weren't just manufactured. They actually showed that the skin has grafted onto the metal implants in the bodies, that these things actually were alive when the metal was implanted. There was eggs shown in some of these beings, like the reproductive system. One of the beings was actually pregnant and has a fetus inside of it when it passed away. All of this stuff is very interesting, and there's a lot of credible scientists kind of coming on board with this, saying that these things are real. Nobody has definitively said that they are extraterrestrial in origin or otherworldly, but the fact that we have these skeletal remains, mummified remains down in Nazca, Peru, that actually could be legitimate something, no matter what these things are, if they're legitimate, they're a huge scientific discovery, because we have three-fingered beings that existed at one point in our history. Or even if they are not extraterrestrial, interdimensional in nature, if these things were manipulated at the time when they were alive, like let's say it was a religious thing that they cut 2 fingers off, and they grew that way, right? This is still a massive archaeological discovery and paleological discovery, because it shows different things that were done at the time that we don't know anything about down in Peru and Central and South America. So very interesting stuff. There's a website, tridactyls.com. Go check that out if you're interested in more on that. There's also the Buga spheres. Now, these things are basically, they were filmed down in Buga, which is again down in South America area. And they got this video of this flying silver orb that crashes, and the guy goes out and picks it up and brings it back, and they have this thing for study now. A lot of interesting things. The Buga sphere is a mysterious metallic orb that was discovered flying over Colombia after being seen flying over the town of Buga, March 2025, so very recently. Metallic and smooth, no visible seams or welds, intricate markings, internal structure. X-ray scans have revealed a complex internal structure with multiple layers, a central chip, and 9 embedded microspheres. They have a potential for levitation because of the video and the source that they've seen with it. And they have a frequency emission. Some reports suggest that the sphere emits strange low frequency LF waves, which some interpret as evidence of extraterrestrial origin. There was a second sphere of very similar nature filmed on July 7th, 2025. So this story is still kind of making its rounds, still being worked on right now with the stuff that's going on with it. Jaime Maussan is a ufologist, Mexican journalist, television personality who has purported claims of supposed alien remains that have been turned into hoaxes. He's a very controversial figure, but he was not the one that brought all of this stuff to the forefront. This was stuff that existed to begin with that now he has become involved in and started helping with, and become kind of one of the spokespersons for. Going back to tying this all into the United States now, Representative Eric Burleson, congressman from Missouri, he was hired David Grush, who we talked about earlier, as his senior advisor. He is also part of the congressional hearings. He works under Anna Paulina Luna, or works with her, maybe not under, but in conjunction with her, as again part of this declassification task force that's going on. He attended the conference on the Nazca mummies and the Buga sphere. So he actually went down there as a representative of the United States and stuff to take a look at these objects, and on the recommendation of Grush. So he went down there, kind of took a look at these things, and is very big into that area. He has also claimed that President Trump has been briefed on alien-human hybrids. So, I mean, this the more we get into this, now we're getting into more of the sci-fi stuff of this that's coming forward. And again, this is all by the United States government that is putting out this information now. So it's not these conspiracy theories. It's not this hearsay. It's not the whatever. These are actual, supposedly under oath congressional people that are talking about this stuff now. So things are getting very weird, very interesting in the UFO disclosure realm right now. Ross Coulthart, Australian investigative journalist, News Nation correspondent. He has come forward now recently and said, this is a quote, "I know uncategorically that the Tic Tac is Lockheed Martin technology." So going back to the USS Nimitz case that we talked about earlier, Ross Coulthart believes that based on some of the stories that he's heard and the witnesses that he's talked to, that specific vehicle was operated by Lockheed Martin. That doesn't mean that they built it. It doesn't mean that they, going back to the AVs, the reproduction vehicles and stuff like that, he says that they were the one that was operating it at the time of the case. So, Lockheed Martin, David Fravor now works as a consultant for Lockheed Martin. And he said that as well. And that the Tic Tac is one of 2 tech projects that Lockheed Martin is currently working on. So he did not go into any more specifics so far as I know of as to what the other project may or may not be. But the one was the Tic Tac. So some of the latest updates here, I got some more here on my notes. But latest updates, the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, is potentially going to take over responsibilities of AARO, the All Domain Anomalous Research Office. So all of the UFO, UAP research and investigation would now be in the hands of the FBI instead of AARO. I think this is partly because of trying to condense and less money, kind of shutting down parts of the government and stuff that has been the course of where the current administration is looking to go. The UAP Disclosure Act, which we talked about, the Schumer-Rounds Amendment, that is still up for debate. It's still going through Congress. It has not come through yet. And then the next congressional oversight hearing was supposed to be happened, but it got pushed back. It is supposed to happen now in September. On the Jeremy Corbell podcast, Weaponized, July 2025, he came forward and said that there is 2 locations, and this is kind of interesting, that the United States government should look to if they want to know the actual what's going on with these aerospace companies. And he literally gave out the addresses of these companies. So the first place is Lockheed Martin Plant B6 Complex, Burbank. So this is Block B6 is the Middle River Complex in Maryland. It is aircraft assembly, or used to be that, and now it's supposed to be for is undergoing environmental cleanup right now. So this is supposed to be one of the locations that has actual downed UAP vehicles of one nature or another, or at least looking into them. The other place is Norfolk Grumman's, Plant 42 in Palmdale, California. It is a U.S. Air Force facility under government contract. In the 1950s and World War II, it was used for flight testing and top secret. It is also under tight security, and it has the Skunk Works hangars there. So this is something that just came forward as well recently. So if you guys are anywhere near those locations, to heck with Area 51, maybe go check out those and watch what's flying over the top of them. All right, so that is all I got for this. But everything is continually moving. Like I said, with the UFO, UAP task forces and all the stuff that's going on with Congress right now, all the stuff that's coming out is basically weekly, daily stuff. So it's really hard to keep up on all this stuff. So that's one of the things that I want to do here is kind of give you a background of everything and give you a good foundation of where everything's going, where it all came from, what's going on right now. But we are live. I see there's still some people watching and some people in the comments. If you guys have anything that you have any questions here for me, I will try and answer it. Obviously, this isn't my personal information. It's all stuff that I've researched and looked into. So I may not be able to provide further details, but I can try and kind of give you an idea of anything else that's going on. I find this stuff very interesting. And that leads me to the other thing that I forgot to mention in my notes here. One of the big stories that's kind of been making its way around is this object that is hurtling towards the earth right now. It is, oh gosh, I can't think of the name of it. Three eye. Crap. There's not. Let me look it up. There is an object hurtling towards Earth right now, and what are you called? 3-Eye Atlas. There you go. So there is a object flying through space right now that is titled 3-Eye Atlas, and it is moving at a speed that should not be possible for like space debris or anything like that. They don't believe. Well, this is Harvard scientist Abby Lowe has come forward and published a paper on this thing that it does not move in a way that we think that comets or other space debris should be moving. It is very weird object. It's not the first time an object like this has kind of passed through our solar system, but it is very, again, an anomalous object out in space that's hurtling towards us right now. And it is set to intersect with Earth in November. So very shortly, this object is coming kind of in our path, heading right towards us. And there is some speculation that this is an alien spacecraft that is hurtling towards the Earth. Again, not conspiracy. This is all over. NASA has chimed in on it and said, yeah, this could be an alien spacecraft. Harvard has chimed in and said, yes, this could be an alien spacecraft. It's really weird time that we're living in right now that, these credible research organizations and stuff basically said, hey, in November, this massive, several mile long object is going to be coming to Earth. And it just, I don't know, it makes you wonder what this actually is. Kind of, I don't know. It's very interesting. So, yeah. Okay. So Techno Shaman says, Barnaby, please look at this old interview. It's quite compelling. Carla Turner lecture on Ted Rice, Masquerade of Angels taken into the Fringe alien abductions. Okay. Podcast. I'll listen to it. All right. I will. Interesting. In search in this terms, Kayla Turner lecture on Ted Rice. Yeah. Okay. Very good. I will look into that. YouTube video. All right. Gotcha. Awesome. Well, if you guys, we have gone over my hour today, but that's all right because I don't have a guest here, so I don't have to worry about them, having to go. So it's just me. I can manage my own time. That's what I do. I'm an adult. So, yeah, you can post a link. Absolutely. Yeah. Put it in the show notes or the comment section down there. But that's it, guys. If you have any further comments, throw them in the comment section. If you want more information on any of this stuff, like I said, go check out Lou Elizondo's book, Eminent, the Hunt for the Skinwalker, which is available as well. And then Skinwalkers at the Pentagon would be your best bets to kind of give you a background on this stuff. Otherwise, go look up the Congressional UAP hearings, and these are all available publicly on YouTube, and you can watch them for yourselves. Weaponized with Jeremy Corbell has a couple of the podcasts and notes that I talked about as well. And then Anna Paulina Luna, her appearance on the Joe Rogan show was another one that is very, very interesting to go check out as well for you guys. She talks about like her personal experience with having seen a UAP while on duty for the United States Air Force, and how it she tried to look into it, and they said, you don't have clearance for that. So interesting. She also goes into some details about some of the other stuff that it's a really interesting interview. Go look up Anna Paulina Luna on the Joe Rogan Experience. It's a well worth your time if you're interested in this topic. But if you'd like to find out more information about myself, you can find it at wisconsincaps.com. And you can go check out our YouTube channel, Wisconsin Caps, on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all those things, or WI Caps on Instagram to follow all my social medias and all the research that my team does here in Wisconsin and all over the US. You can check out my investigations of Skinwalker Ranch when I got to go out there on our YouTube channel. And if you want more of this stuff, like I said, I do presentations all over Wisconsin, all over the US. I'll be, watch the beginning of the show. It tells you where I am under the public events tab on our website, wisconsincaps.com. It's right down here under my name is the link, and it's in the show notes. But thank you guys for listening and watching today's show. I really appreciate it. I hope you guys all learned something and had a good time. So until next time, guys, doesn't look like we have any other questions. A lot of natural quartz. I wonder if there's a lot of natural quartz crystals at Skinwalker Ranch. Not that I know of. Take it with a grain of salt, but up the road is Blind Frog Ranch. And Blind Frog Ranch has some really weird minerals underneath it, according to their show. And they've said that some of that stuff could cause some of the electromagnetical interferences and stuff that they've had on their property. But as far as Skinwalker goes, they have kind of said it's similar to what you'd expect at a meteor crash site, which potentially could be what's inside the mesa, a meteorite that crashed. But even so, they're pulling some weird stuff out of that mesa right now, and the stuff that's going on there doesn't necessarily lend itself to just being a meteor that crashed there. I'm not a scientist, I don't know, but from what I've gleaned from my research and people I've talked to that do know what they're talking about, so take it for what's worth. Cool. Awesome, guys. Well, that is my show for today. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something. And check out all my other stuff. Until next time, guys, remember, we're all part of the paranormal spectrum. Take care, be well, and I'll see you next week.